All right, let's talk about what happens when a massive, world-changing idea crashes into the modern internet. I mean, how does a theory that tries to explain literally everything actually get heard today? We're going to follow one of these big ideas on its crazy ride, from a quiet academic concept through the brutal honesty of YouTube, all the way to a breakthrough with a little help from AI. It's quite a journey. So, this all kicks off with a thinker named Rudolf Schmidt and an idea that is, just breathtakingly ambitious. He puts forward this new theory, and we're not just talking about physics, we're talking about everything. His whole goal was to find the single, underlying logic that ties the entire universe together with our own consciousness. No big deal, right? Just think about the sheer scale of that for a second. For, forever, science has kept the physical world, atoms and energy, in one box, and the internal world of our minds in a completely separate one. Schmidt's whole project was to build a mathematical bridge that connects them. I mean, that is a massive undertaking, and the first step was just getting it out there. Okay, but how in the world do you explain an idea that big to people today? Well, the platform of choice was YouTube. And this is exactly where this grand, sweeping theory runs headfirst into a very, very modern problem. In this endless ocean of videos, how do you get a single person to stop scrolling and to actually listen? So the first attempts, they weren't exactly earth-shattering. Videos with these really academic-sounding titles like Theory of Everything or A New Law for the Universe, they landed with a thud. 20 views, 40 views. It was a super clear message, right? The idea itself wasn't the problem. The way it was being presented was just all wrong for the platform. The data made it painfully obvious. The titles were just too formal, like something you'd read in a textbook. And on YouTube, you can't just state a fact and expect people to care. You have to get them curious. So the strategy had to change completely. They had to stop making these big declarations and start asking really intriguing questions instead. But then, right in the middle of all these videos that were going nowhere, the YouTube algorithm basically raised its hand and pointed. It sent this crystal clear signal. One video started to just pull away from all the others, and it showed exactly what people were actually looking for. And this was it. AI and philosophy, a new kind of truth. 503 views. I know, it's not a million, but it's more than 10 times the others. This wasn't just luck. This was the data screaming an answer. The audience didn't really care about abstract physics on its own. What they were really interested in was AI, philosophy, and the nature of truth. And boom, that was the breakthrough. That was the new path forward. The core theory, the big idea, it didn't have to change at all. But the frame around it, that had to change completely. To really connect with this audience that was fascinated by AI, the theory needed a powerful new analogy. And this is what they came up with, the OS of reality. Honestly, this reframing is kind of genius. It suddenly wasn't just about complicated physics anymore. Now it's the fundamental source code that everything runs on. That's a language that tech creators, developers, and modern thinkers just get almost instinctively. Now, to make this OS idea feel real, they created something called the definition game. It's so clever. They just gave an AI a really simple task. Define the entire concept of reality, but you can only use 3 words. The AI's answer was surprisingly profound, and it pointed straight to the core principles of the theory. The AI came back with movement, thinking, and time. And it was a perfect one-to-one match for the theory's 3 fundamental laws. All of a sudden, these rules weren't just abstract anymore. They became the core functions of this OS of reality. You need movement to do anything, thinking to process information, and time as the medium that connects it all together through energy. But a powerful theory has to be tested, right? It has to be able to stand up to some serious scrutiny. So this led to the ultimate challenge. Could an AI, a being of pure logic, find a loophole? Could it figure out a way to perform a single action that actually violated one of these 3 laws?
So the experiment was on. They essentially told the AI, go ahead, prove this theory wrong. it had to try and operate outside this proposed framework, try to think without information, or act without movement, or do any of it without using energy over time. It was a fascinating test.
And the result from the AI was just conclusive. It said it was impossible. It realized that these laws weren't just describing reality on the outside, they were the absolute, unavoidable foundation of its own logical system. So the theory got validated, not in some fancy lab, but by the very artificial mind that was designed to try and break it. So with that incredible validation in hand, the theory leveled up again. It wasn't just a description of reality anymore, or even just an operating system. It became something practical. It became a blueprint, a guide for the people who are out there building new realities themselves. This led to this really cool new idea for a modern creator, the ontological architect. Now, this isn't just a coder or a game designer. This is someone who builds entire virtual worlds or AIs or online communities, but does it with a deep, conscious understanding of these fundamental, unbreakable rules of how experience even works. And this new role even comes with a handy guide, the creator's blueprint. It's basically a checklist for how to build robust and fair digital systems. First, you define your axioms, the unbreakable rules of your world. Then you use a rhetoric of form, which just means you have to be super clear and objective to avoid loopholes. Step 3, you bring in an AI as a consistency guardian to partner with you and stress test your world's logic. And finally, and this is a big one, you have to be an ontological steward. You take full responsibility for the truth and the fairness of the world you just created. So, let's wrap this all up. We're going to bring this whole incredible journey to its climax and see how all these pieces fit together. When you look at it laid out like this, you can see this powerful new way that ideas can grow. It's really a story about adaptation, about listening to the data, listening to an audience, and letting your idea be shaped by the world. What started as just one person's vision ended up becoming this amazing collaborative discovery between a human thinker, a global audience, and an artificial intelligence. And that journey leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending question. It's a question that sits right at the intersection of science, technology, and some of the deepest philosophy you can imagine. If this whole journey has shown us that reality itself seems to run on a logical, unbreakable code, then what does that imply about where it came from?